Hi, it's Sally-Shakti, and this is a full moon journaling practice for the full moon in Cancer in January 2023, Friday, the 6th of January. This is the first full moon of our calendar year of 2023. Not everybody's year starts on January the 1st. I typically tend to mark the turning of the year at the solstice. And I know that other people might mark it at Samhain, end of October, Halloween. And other people might mark it at the new moon, the Chinese New Year, typically, and the Tibetan New Year. So there are lots of different ways that people come to understand our relationship with time, some more linear, some more circular, some more spiralic. And yet here we are collectively at this time that most of us, at least in some ways, recognize as being the first full moon of this calendar year. And that means it's the first significant moon of this calendar year. And some of the astrologers that I listen to say that the first significant moon of the year sets the tone and the energy for the whole year to come. And I don't think I have enough years of experience with this kind of work to have my own opinion on whether or not that's true. But what I have noticed about this particular year's first moon, which is the Cancer moon, is that the last significant moon of our calendar year 2023 is also a full moon in Cancer. So we do have the Cancerian full moon actually bookending the beginning and the end of this year, the transition in and the transition out of what we know as this calendar year. That for me is significant. That's one level of significance. Another element that I find significant is that the tarot teachers I listen to designate this year as a number 7 year numerologically. 2 + 2 + 3 = 7, and that the 7 card in the major arcana is the Chariot. Now the Chariot also is a card whose energy is ruled by the energy of Cancer. The Chariot can be likened to a hermit crab, where the crab is in the process of outgrowing one shell, and then I like to think of it as scuttling towards the next one. And there's lots of different transition points and processes in that. There's the sensation of outgrowing and shedding what no longer fits, what's no longer appropriate to carry us forward. Then there's the vulnerability of actually stepping outside of that, leaving that protective shell and moving towards the next one, which we haven't got to yet. There's a transition period between the two shells where we're extremely vulnerable because we're in that state of being in the unknown, where things typically feel very uncomfortable because we don't know. We know that we've left something behind, one way of being behind, and we know that we hope that we are heading towards something else, but that something else hasn't arrived yet. So in the interim, there is a period of extreme vulnerability and discomfort, and until we can find our home in the next shell, the next protective shell. And that leads me to really the third significance that I feel for this moon today's Cancer full moon on the 6th of January, is that astrologically the moon will be full at the degree point of 16 degrees of Cancer, and that will be in opposition to the sun, which will be at 16 degrees of Capricorn. And the astrologers I listen to have called that the Ancestor Axis. For me, this is a deep time and invitation. And I think that this My sense is that this will be with us through the period of the whole year. A deep invitation to go within, for internal inquiry, and for deep and what might also feel at times vulnerable and uncomfortable excavation work. And a sense also of being in the not knowing as we transition from one way of being to another. So I want to unpack that a little bit and say that what that means for me, something that I've been talking about in recent videos, is beginning to witness and become more aware of the stories that we carry, particularly those stories that we've inherited from our families and our ancestors and our cultural context. And journaling for me is one very practical and powerful tool for coming into a greater sense of self-awareness of what our patterns and behaviors and beliefs and stories are, that we can actually help to bring that patterning into consciousness to the surface through journaling, because we start to notice the repetitions in our words, our phrases, our beliefs, our stories, our behaviors that can show us what we're carrying. And then we can, for me, the practice of journaling supports me and others to bring those stories to awareness with compassion. You know, when I encourage people to journal on the page, it's without judgment. It's to allow space for whatever is there. And that is a compassionate way of being with ourselves in all of our stories and all of our ways of being, not all of which are positive, not all of which are healthy, not all of which are helpful. And that's what I really want to get into today, is that I feel that this year and this particular moon today is going to be a very powerful invitation for ancestral healing in terms of noticing and witnessing those stories that we've carried and inherited, those stories and beliefs and inheritances that we're grateful for, and that have brought us to the fruition of where we are today. Full moons are also about fruition, culmination, gratitude. The full moon is the peak of the lunar cycle. It's when the seeds that we've planted at the new moon come to fruition, and we can see culmination there, and we can have gratitude for that. But the full moon is also an energy of opposition and tension, because we have the sun opposite the moon. And what that can do in its turn is illuminate for us where there is healing and tending required. And I think especially in the sign of Cancer, which is the nurturer, the mother. Cancer is the cosmic mother, the great womb of life, death, and rebirth, the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. Maybe even the circle where our ancestors are held, and where we are also held in dimensions outside of this earthly linear time. We're there in that circle with our ancestors of past, present, and future. How we get to think about our own story as an ancestor to future generations, how we get to now receive this strong invitation to bear witness to the stories that our ancestors have carried, for good or ill. Notice how those stories have been showing up in our own lives. Give gratitude for the stories and inheritances that we have received, especially for those that we might feel thankful for, that have got us to the fruition that we see in ourselves today. And to begin to release those ancestral stories and inheritances that no longer serve us. And I want to take that aspect into a wider context for today, and as the seeds of an inquiry for the rest of this year. When I'm thinking about those stories and beliefs and patterns and conditionings that have, and inheritances that no longer serve us, that we're ready to let go of. I want to invite a wider perspective as to what it means to be served by those stories, because I think there's a wider cultural perspective that we can bring in at this time, which is timely and very resonant. That all of us were born into a patriarchal system, a patriarchal world. We're all carrying wounds and privileges. Many of us, most of us, are carrying both wounding and privileges from those inheritances. Many of us across the world are carrying much ancestral wounding at this time, which is ready to be witnessed and seen and held in tenderness and healed and released in compassion. Ancestral wounding from the ways in which our ancestors globally have been severed from their land, some more further back in history and some more recently. Severance from the land, severance from community and family and kinship, connection with the natural world, connection with human and non-human others. It's time, and I see it, that people are beginning to notice and bear witness to the stories of the ancestral traumas that we each individually carry from that time, on those times of separation and encroachment, enslavement, the extraction of resources from individuals, communities, landscapes. Even the idea to see the earth as a resource in that way is a patriarchal concept. It's not an indigenous concept. And all of us at some point in history were indigenous, and our ancestors were land-based. And we may have to go further back or not so far back to encounter some of the stories of our own ancestors as land-based peoples, working in rhythms with the natural cycles and the sun and the moon, and with perhaps even plant medicines, local herbalism, all of the wisdoms that have hitherto been almost completely lost and eradicated through the ways that people across the world have been severed and are continuing to be severed from their land, their communities, their families, their homes, their people. This is an energy of the Cancer full moon: family, home, kinship, connection, community, nurture. What do we need to feel safe in ourselves? And many of us don't know. We don't have even an embodied memory, a somatic memory of what it might feel like to feel safe in ourselves and at home in this world, because of the traumas that we have experienced in our lifetimes and perhaps in past lifetimes that we've carried through that are also ready to be healed, and because of the traumas that we've inherited from our ancestors who were severed from the land, and that story has been carried, that trauma has been carried and passed on through the generations. And it's, I believe, the time of this generation now to heal those wounds. And when we come together, or when we do the work of healing those wounds, we do that work in ourselves primarily, but we're also doing it for our ancestors, our generations past and present and future, because the timeline is not always linear. And that when we heal that wound in ourselves, the impact is perhaps bigger than we can ever know. But what I think can be certain, even from a linear perspective, is that when we heal and inherited an ancestral wound in ourselves, we then don't pass that on to the next generation. So the next generation is a little bit more free. And if they do some healing work in themselves, then the next generation is a little bit more free. And I feel that our generation, this generation, the people who are here right now during this enormous evolution and transition on the earth, are here for that purpose. We're a portal through which that trauma will not pass. It stops here. And in order for it to stop here, we are being invited to do the healing work for ourselves that also then ripples out, as far as I believe, 7 or more generations into the past and the future. And we're doing it collectively for all of those who are here now too. It's deep and profound work, and it's an important invitation if you're ready to take it. And I want to widen the perspective even more to say that all of us were born into a patriarchal culture. That's where I started this tangent. And that also means that we have inherited and enacted and embodied many, if not all, of the beliefs and behaviors and stories and hierarchies and structures and privileges and superiorities of patriarchal culture. Some of us will have different privileges, more or less than others, depending on identifying categories that have taken on so much significance in this patriarchal era, such as our gender, our race, our class, our sexuality, our orientation, our ability or disability. There are so many things that all of us have inherited, whoever we are, and wherever we find ourselves on that spectrum of identity, that we're being called also to do the work now of undoing those structures in ourselves. As we see those structures falling away and being radically remade in the world around us, so we must do that work in ourselves too. Because with the stories and the structures and the superiorities and the privileges and the internalized oppressions that we have inherited through patriarchal culture, through our cultures, again, through our families and our ancestries, there's a real mix, there's a real weave, a messy weave of what we've inherited, whether that serves us or does not, whether we interpret that as good or bad, whether it is something that we're trying to reclaim for ourselves that's been lost or taken from us through patriarchy, and the things that also we might have a blind spot to that we benefit from and that we're privileged from, or that we've internalized as being right and true, that we've also inherited from patriarchal culture and our family culture and our inheritances. And I feel that the invitation, a big invitation of this moon and this year ahead, is to radically look within and do that excavation work. What is it that we can radically reclaim for ourselves that was taken from us by patriarchal culture? And what are the inheritances that we have by which we have unconsciously contributed to perpetuating patriarchal culture? All of that gets to be brought up into illumination at this time and met with compassion. Ultimately, there can be no judgment, right or wrong. we're all in this together, and the healing work is for us all to do. There can be no blame for individuals who have inherited certain unconscious beliefs, which we all have. And there's no goal to get to that we have to become this best or better or right or righteous person. Really, for me, my sense of it is that it's an invitation to greater wisdom and wider compassion for self and others as we all are healing on this journey together and supporting each other. And the more people who do it, the more we support each other, and the more we all lift each other up through that support, so that none of us is having to do all of it on our own, which really would be impossible. The web is so tangled, the net is so tangled, and we're so tightly caught in it that we cannot see all of the loops and the ties. But what we can do is practices like journaling, where we can begin to bring some of those inheritances, behaviors, patterns, stories to the light of consciousness and witness them and acknowledge them and hold them with compassion and without judgment. And the more that we can practice that, simply that, and I say simply, it's not simple, but that is the practice. To witness without compassion, to witness with compassion, without judgment. Because the more we can do that for ourselves, the more we also can do that for others, and the more support we can be, and the more support we can offer on this healing journey. So I think that's really what I feel most passionate about right now, and what I really want to share. So I'll move us into the journaling practice now. So I invite you to have your notebook and pen to hand, and then to come into movement in your body, giving yourself an invitation to release everything that I've just been saying, whatever that might have brought up in you. Just let it go, let it move a little bit. Even shake it out if you feel like you want to. Some sound in the exhale. And then when you're feeling a little more settled and comfortable, bringing yourself back into your body and your awareness to your hips and the support of the chair beneath you. Maybe you want to do your journaling practice standing. So even whether you're sitting or standing, you can bring your awareness to your feet and the support of the earth beneath you. And allowing your breath to be soft in your belly. And this is where also we feel the energy and the nurturance of Cancer, the Mother Moon. So sensing into that softness in your belly, which is a connection and an invitation to connect into the portal of the great cosmic mother, the great cosmic ocean. So if that feels aligned for you, taking a few breaths to just imagine that deep portal of connection from your belly, the softness in your belly, to the great cosmic ocean, or the great cosmic source of all being. And breathing into that sense of connection and awareness. Releasing sound on the out breath. Sound of the ocean in the back of the throat as you're breathing. And then feeling a sense of openness through the chest, lifting through the spine, the neck, crown of the head. And when you're ready, taking your pen into your hand and putting your pen against the page to move the pen however it wants to be moved. So in this first stage, we're transitioning into the journaling process, out of the thinking mind, the busy body, and we're letting go so that we can come more fully into presence with the breath, the body, and the connection between the pen and the paper, movement of your hand, the physicality of this practice, this process, and allowing your mind to wander as your pen moves across the page. And we're letting go of judgment. We're letting go of criticism. We're letting go of a sense that we need to get somewhere or be somewhere or be something or someone different than we are right now in this moment. So allowing yourself to be fully present with the movement of your pen across the page and the breath in your belly. Keep breathing, keep moving your hand across the page. And I'll mind the time. And really allow ourselves to connect in deep with that ocean of being and belonging. As our bodies relax, our minds relax, the breathing relaxes, we may notice a sense of openness in the heart, the crown. This movement be a sense of connection physically with this world, sense of belonging cosmically in the great womb, and a sense of relaxation where our minds can let go judgment and intention, control and direction. Mm. 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 And when you feel ready, allowing that movement to transition into writing. We're writing with whatever is present right now. No particular focus, no particular intention or direction, no judgment or criticism. Can we hold ourselves in self-compassion without expectation as we allow whatever is present to surface and be witnessed by ourselves on the page? This journaling is always private and personal. It's only for you. It's never intended to be record keeping or a diary or something that you show to others unless you particularly choose to do so. Oftentimes when I do this kind of work, my writing is not even necessarily legible. The purpose of this for me is to let the energy of what wants to be witnessed move to the surface and then down through my hand and out of the pen, out of my body onto the page, in whatever form that takes. And if you're uncertain how to begin this process of free writing, you might start with a prompt such as I feel, or I notice, or I witness, and see what comes. And everything is welcome. Could feel like it's very surface or mundane. Could feel like it's very deep and profound. Let whatever is there, be there, and move through it with compassion and without judgment. And you can write over the top of what's already there, or you can start a new page for this new process of free writing. Keeping a connection with your breath, your belly, your body as you write. Allowing the words to be formed and witnessed on the page. Mm. And when you feel ready, you can begin to invite some focus into this writing as we explore some prompts that are relevant to the energy of this full moon in Cancer. So the first prompt for your focus is, what are the ancestral inheritances that you are grateful for in your life? What are the ancestral inheritances that you are grateful for in your life? And let your mind, your hand, your heart, your belly take you wherever it wants to take you in response to that prompt. What are the ancestral inheritances that you are grateful for in your life? Staying connected to the breath, the body, your breath, your body. And our second point of focus: what are the ancestral inheritances that you are ready to release? What are the ancestral inheritances that you are ready to release? Feel free to go wherever you go in your response to that prompt. What are the ancestral inheritances that you are ready to release? Keeping connected to your breath, your belly, your body. Allowing yourself to write without judgment and witness with compassion. Whatever is there is welcome. Sound on the out breath to support your release. And our third prompt, our third focus is: how can you be compassionate with yourself and others as you do the excavation work of radical self-enquiry? Just letting that focus drop in, sensing into that inquiry, and allowing your hand to keep moving as you write without judgment, witnessing with compassion. How can you be compassionate with yourself and others as you do the excavation work of radical self-enquiry? Keeping your connection with your breath, your belly, your body. Keep writing and witnessing with compassion, without judgment. How can you be compassionate with yourself and others as you do the excavation work of radical self-enquiry? And knowing that you are not alone in that inquiry and in that deep, deep healing work. Allowing sound to support your release with the out breath. And when you feel complete, bringing that inquiry to a close. If you need longer, feel free to pause this video and continue. And then when you're ready, bringing yourself back into your body with a little movement, a little stretch, opening up the jaw, the shoulders, the chest, the neck, softening through the belly, feeling the connection between your hips and the seat if you're sitting, your feet and the floor, the earth beneath. I invite you during this time of the Cancer full moon to light a candle and acknowledge with gratitude the ancestors who have brought you to where you are today. And breathing and feeling the love that surrounds you from those who are your kin, human and non-human, your connection to the earth, your connection to the stars, your connection to all beings and your own family and community of loved ones, chosen loved ones, related loved ones. And when you feel full in your belly and your heart with that love and gratitude for those who have come before, I invite you to then release as you blow out the candle. Set an intention to release those stories, inheritances, and beliefs that no longer serve you and that no longer serve us collectively going forward. And you may or may not know what some of those are, but the intention is enough as a place to start in this deep and radical and ongoing time of self-inquiry and excavation and healing and transformation. So I wish you well. Thank you so much for being here with me today, and I look forward to seeing you again at the new moon. Lots of love.